Hey Sneak Peekers, my name is Hunter Gasaway and I'm here on the carpet at AFF for American Fiction. Let's talk to Cord. My name is Hunter Gasaway. I'm a student filmmaker here at UT Austin.
Fantastic.
And so I'm a huge fan of yours from Watchman, one of my favorite shows of all time.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, what are some of the themes that y'all touched on in Watchmen that were important to bring over to American Fiction?
Ooh, I just think that Damon's really good at capturing sort of like the reality of life without ever getting too dark and cynical. I think that, for instance, the show The Leftovers is sort of, I actually never saw Lost. I still haven't seen Lost, and so I was very embarrassed to tell Damon that in our first meeting, but I was a huge Leftovers fan, and one of the reasons that I really loved The Leftovers was it has the potential to be very, very bleak and dark material that you can just follow toward a very cynical end. And I actually think that the way that Damon handled that series and sort of ended it was on a very, very hopeful note, and sort of like made the show about themes of love and finding joy and sort of like the rubble of life. And I think that for me, that's something that I tried to bring to this film is, the film is neither comedy nor tragedy. And I think that that's because I wanted to make something that felt like life. And to me, life is neither comedy nor tragedy. And so I think that sort of like bringing a reality without needing to be cynical and morose is something that I took from that show.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you touched on in the last interview was the idea of like telling something right now because it's important. Why do you think American Fiction was important to be told in 2023?
I think that unfortunately Hollywood still has a long way to go when it comes to representation of people of color, and I think that many people of color and other people find ourselves not really reflected in the stories, or at least sort of, I think that the stories that people tend to tell about black people, for instance, frequently, are stories about slavery or drug dealers or gang members or inner city violence. I think the stories that, people frequently tell about Latinos is like drug cartels and sort of like fleeing your like miserable circumstances for a better life in the United States. And I just think that while these stories are true and certainly some people's lived experience, they're sort of like a very limited view of like what those people's lives can actually be, and sort of like a very restrictive set of rules, it seems, sometimes when it comes to telling people of color stories. So, I just wanted to make something that sort of talked about this and sort of acknowledged that there's more to our lives than just sort of the misery, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think what was so special about like your episode, This Extraordinary Being, was like it was able to mix genre conventions with this like story to touch on important issues. Are there any sort of genre conventions that you use in American Fiction, and how have you found that to be useful in your writing?
I actually don't really know that I used any genre conventions. I actually think that I tried to like break out of genre conventions. I think that, for me, I think that Percival Everett's work isn't really can't really be classified by genre. I actually asked Percival one time if he considers himself a satirist, and he said no, despite the fact that everybody would tell you that he's a satirist. And so I think that for me, the goal is just to make something that feels honest and real. And for me, the goal with this movie was to make something that felt like life. So yeah, hopefully, hopefully it isn't. I mean, I didn't set out to make it a genre. Maybe somebody thinks that it is, but I didn't set out to do that, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm very excited to see the film. And last question I have is, we're both student filmmakers at UT Austin. What advice do you have to give to student filmmakers who want to make movies for a living?
The thing that I always say is I think that obviously it's great to be a student and sort of like study and learn and learn sort of like the rules of filmmaking and sort of like learn the best practices of filmmaking. But I always tell people that I think that to make interesting art, then you should also live an interesting life. And so I think that some people tend to think that in order to be a good artist or a good writer, you have to chain yourself to your desk and sort of like type at the keyboard all day. And like, absolutely, you should write. Don't get me wrong. Like writing's important, but it's also important to just get outside and sort of talk to people and do new things and travel new places and experience new things and make new friends and talk to people you might not otherwise talk to and go places you might not otherwise go places you're not allowed to go sometimes, sneak around, eavesdrop on conversations. Like all of that stuff all of that stuff I think adds to the work. It's sort of, I don't think that you can make interesting work if you sort of aren't an interesting person yourself. And so I think the number one characteristic that an artist should have is curiosity about other people and curiosity about the world. So don't feel like just because you aren't sitting in front of your computer screen or at an edit bay that you're not necessarily working on your filmmaking. I think it's just, you can work on your filmmaking in a lot of different ways. It doesn't just need to be in a dark room, sort of typing away or editing away.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great
to chat.
Yes, thank you. You can go see American Fiction in theaters this Christmas season. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can like and subscribe on our YouTube channel to one of these videos right here if you want to watch something else.